Today we're taking on the largest tournament of the format.
Subscribe.
So from the release of Cyberstorm Access up until UK Nationals, it's been a whole format with Super Heavy and Parley entering the scene at full power. Obviously that's not the case anymore because at UK Nationals a ban list dropped which changed the format.
Someone showed up in the middle of my round 2 to tell me the ban list dropped.
But throughout this format we've had 2 first place local results, a second place regional finish and a second place locals result, totaling an overall record of 16-2 with our branded deck. My goal was to keep this up and top Nationals, which just so happened to be the biggest and last tournament of this format. So this is the 40 card list that we are going to be taking to Nationals. First things first, I did change the sleeves to just standard Dragon Shields instead of the double sleeved with the Master Duel sleeves, because we were using the standard clear over sleeves. And with the new policy, I'm not 100% sure if those are usable or not, so I just decided to play it safe and go to the normal Dragon Shields. But yeah, coming into the tournament, expecting Kashtira as the best and most represented deck, followed by Super Heavy, and then things like Labyrinth, Branded, Parley, Sprite, etc, etc. This list is sort of built to have a easy Kashtira matchup to an extent. So the goal is to get to top cut, and then if we make it to top cut, we'll be playing a lot more Kashtira, and therefore we potentially have an even better chance of getting as close to first place as possible. But yeah, let's get into the 40 card list. It's basically the list I showed you in the last video, but we have all of our nice shiny cardboard here. Starting off with the starters, we of course have a triple keeper and the best card in the deck, Instant Fusion. Going first, it's great. Going second, it's great. It's a starter. It protects your plays. It's an interruption. It's so good, man. Millenniumized and ambulance is so good. We also do have the 3 ultimate rare Aliber, 3 branded opening, and 3 branded fusion. So we are still playing the 13 starters, 6 hard normal summons, which, you know, typically you don't want to do in a 40 card list. You would rather play 5. However, I am placing more value on just the ability to play in general with a decent starter in a long tournament. Moving on, we of course have 3 fusion deployment, 2 Ulti Albaz. This card is like money now, by the way. It's like doubled in price since I bought them, so bought them at a good time. Let's go, baby. 1 Quem and 1 Cartesia. Of course, we also have the Called by the Grave. And then the sort of engine requirement one-offs, we have, of course, the Mercurier, 1 Desbian Strategy, 1 Adlib. Card is just too good to get rid of. 1 Libellion, 1 Dark Magician, and the 2 Predaplant bricks. Branded Lost and branded in red. And then finally, for the non-engine, we of course have 3 Nibiru. This is good into cash if they are going for the 5 zone lock. It's also our best hand trap into Super Heavy. We have 3 Ash in the main deck. Arguably like a questionable choice, but we need it for Branded and the Labyrinth matchups. Otherwise our main deck just feels a little weak to those matchups. So 3 Nib, 3 Ash. Then we have 2 Dark Ruler, which is the most impactful non-engine against Super Heavy in game 1. Game 2 and 3, not so much because they side in Spell Canceller, but it's also good against Sprite, Baguska, Tryhard, you know, just random silly things like that. And we have double Book of Moon as well, because this is very good against Kashtira, and I did want at least half of our non-engine to be good going first and second. Say we get interrupted going first, we still have like Nibiru or Book of Moon to interrupt our opponent and, you know, stop their plays. It's also good against Super Heavy if you are going first as well. Yeah, that's essentially 11 non-engine in a 40 card deck. It's pretty consistent. Non-engine is, you know, high impact unless Ash is like all you see against Super Heavy. But it feels pretty strong, honestly. I am confident with this list going into this format. For the extra deck, nothing too spicy. Of course, we have the 2 Albion, 2 Libellion, 2 Mirror Jade, and 2 Dragoon. Like I said, we are respecting the Kashtira matchup. We want an easy matchup, and Dragoon is one of our best options into that deck, especially through things like Shifter. So if they are playing the Mind Hacker line, we do need the second Libellion and the second Dragoon. Otherwise, it's basically just entirely turned off by cutting off the 1 Libellion. We also have our new secret rare shiny Titaniclad that I managed to purchase off of Kelby just before Nationals. I found myself in hands where I was being interrupted on things like Branded Fusion and Granguignol being the only card that I would actually successfully resolve. Titaniclad is, in most cases, the best send going first, because this gets you to Quem in the end phase. without having to discard for branded opening. And it's also just a really good card in general. This can get so beefy, especially with Nibiru in the main deck. You can easily just push for game, beat over extra deck monsters that are under 4k. Then we have one Chimera, standard, one Dragostapalia, also standard. In the Kashtira matchup, if you get shifted, Keeper gets you to Dragostapalia plus Dragoon, so that's a benefit of Keeper as a starter in the deck in this format. We have, of course, our instant fusion targets, the Ambulance and the Millennium Eyes, and then Grand Guignol and the Queritus as the target to summon off of its effect. Occasionally we will summon Quem off of its effect as well, but yeah, Queritus just comes up way more often than Lulua Lilith does, because you can actually summon this in a myriad of other ways rather than having to summon it off of just Grand Guignol's effect. Overall, due to the fact that Mind Hacker is in this format that we're playing in for the tournament, there's not a whole lot you can change with the extra deck outside of like this, because you have to play these two. With Mind Hacker being removed from the format after the ban list, you get a little bit more flexibility in there, and you can change your deck building accordingly, which is something I'm very happy about, honestly, after the ban list. Side deck, 3 Kurikara, MVP of this format, probably the best non-engine card you can be playing. Insane against Kashtira, insane against a lot of decks actually. Like if you tribute a Baron with this and then just get the Baron in the end phase, it's crazy. A lot of the time that you summon this, you are just OTKing though, especially through cash boards that activate like 4 or 5 different effects on field. The issue I do have though is that this is my only out to Pearly Noir. Now Pearly is a deck that isn't as popular as I kind of expected it to be, so I'm kind of banking on not playing against it. But that's not to say we have a terrible matchup against the deck, because of course we do have other hand traps and whatnot. So 3 Kurikara, we have 3, there can be only 1. This card is just basically an auto win button going first. If all our engine gets stopped, we can literally just flip that. And against most of the good decks this format, just auto wins the game. So yeah, 3 Tikaboo in this side deck there. We have 3 Gamma and 1 Driver, essentially a impactful hand trap that can be sided into any matchup. I guess you could argue it got limited for a reason on the ban list. Some mad lads are still playing it at 1. We are still rocking the double Sage Defleur, Soggy Mommy, let's go. Duster and Pankratops as basically our back row removal. I did end up opting for this over something like Cosmic Cyclone because it has so much more versatility and it's a lot stronger siding into matchups that don't typically have a lot of back row in engine, but they are most likely to be siding in things like Anti-Spell and other floodgates that just completely stomp our deck. Which is also just a 2900 body, push for game easily after out in a floodgate, or you know, you can also out Fenrir's and just monsters as well. So if you Nibiru, you can't out the token because your like Branded Fusion gets ashed or something, you can just Sage the token away and punch. Card is really, really good. Not so sure about it in the next format, but yeah, for Nationals, it felt like a very, very strong choice. And then final card, we have the 3rd Dark Ruler No More coming in against Sprite. It does get a little awkward against Super Heavy post game 1 because your opponent sides in Spell Canceller. They're most likely going to go for Spell Canceller against branded Dark Ruler, therefore isn't as reliable against the deck. But if you hand trap them, they're then kind of unlikely to get to the Spell Canceller line, and so just end on a bunch of negates and Dark Ruler then becomes good. So I don't know, it's a little weird one. If you see it with other non-engine, it's fine. We had 1 spot, okay? Might as well have just been the 3rd Dark Ruler. But that is the entirety of the deck list that we are going to be playing at Nationals. The deck I'm most scared of gotta be IKEA Labyrinth, because I know generally what the Floodgate build does, but when you throw in all the furniture pieces, you know, you got everything going to the graveyard, just setting viruses from the deck. That's when things get spooky because I have no idea what's going on. I'm not well versed against that version of the deck. So let's just hope we don't go against it. Alright, over 1,000 players, 9 rounds on day 1, then 1 round on day 2, before cutting to top 32. I have the habit of playing shit first thing in the morning and tend to lose the first round of big events like this, so that is the curse that I want to break. We end up losing the dice roll round 1 to Punk Gold Pride, and they pop off like there's no tomorrow, 5 or 6 cards in hand, 4 back row. We can't play through that. We do pull it back when we're able to go first in game 2 with a really sick interaction. We deployment for Cartesia, normal Aliber, they chain Imperm to the effect, target an Aliber. We chain Cartesia to fuse, they chain Veiler, target Cartesia, and we chain Book of Moon, baby. Everything resolves and they're hand looped for 2. And then game 3 we clutch it out with Ash, Nibiru, Sage to clear the token, and Engine to OTK. Moving on to round 2, we're thrown all the way up to table 2 and win the dice roll against Melfi Sprite. Pulling off the Fool Keeper Dragoon combo, they scoop before revealing anything, so we are siding blind. Game 2, we get Surprise Ibly locked and don't see Book of Moon, unfortunately. Game 3, we don't do much, but Tikaboo forces him into really awkward lines and we're actually able to play properly before he can. So we're sitting at a comfortable 2-0 now. Moving on to round 3, we have our first Kashtira match of the day, and we lose the dice roll. Opponent goes first and sets up a Rise Heart Pass, which is fine with the engine we have in hand. We start off with Instant Fusion for Millennium Eyes, which forces out the Rise Heart and sends it to grave. We do have to get a judge call on that, and I do appeal the initial judge call to the head judge. Head judge is in my favor, so we're all good. A Rise Heart gets sent to the grave by game mechanics, yep. Then our engine wins the game from there. Game 2, we get barriered, so we have to search deployment with Keeper to play on their turn, but it isn't quite enough to deal with their engine. In game 3, I choose to go second, and opponent sets 3 pass. We open Duster, so we're in a good spot. Activate the Duster, we get barriered, and have to search opening with Alibur to play with Quem. They do only have Tier Limits Kashtira and Scareclaw Kashtira, so we eventually grind out the dub. So far, so good, but round 4, we're paired with Betty, Alex Robertson from Disciples on IKEA Labyrinth. Literally a nightmare scenario for me, but we win the dice roll. Trading Ashes for a turn or 2, we eventually set up Dragoon, and he just can't out it. Game 2 kinda goes the same way. We eventually get to Dragoon, and again, he just can't out it. Literally got carried by that card because I'm pretty sure I was playing like awfully. Round 5, we get our first super heavy matchup of the day and win the dice roll. We do take a game each, and then game 3, after siding everything in, all we see is 1 Ash to stop a hand full of engine. It's super heavy. There's no chance of winning that one. And our opponent's seen bike literally every game, so they're just gaming, man, taking our first loss of the day. Round 6, we win the dice roll against Mathmech, and once again we take a game each. Going second in game 3, we open Nibiru and Called By, but just the 1 starter, which is branded opening. We kind of got forced into Nibiruing at a very weird spot before they can set up an Xyz with the Diameter negate, but the G-Golem stuff allows them to get to Terahertz anyway, and they have talents to rip our opening. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but GG. 4-2 going into round 7, kind of getting a little knock to the confidence there, but we have to win it out if we want to top. Round 7, we lose the dice roll to Super Heavy, and my opponent is going crazy because they finally win a dice roll, man, and finally don't get drawled or hand trapped. They get their full board, and I'm like, damn, that's crazy. Anyway, Dark Ruler, Mirror Jade crashed to wipe the entire board, and the rest is history. Game 2, they do pop off with Spell Canceller, and game 3, we get hand trapped to Oblivion, but flip there can be only 1 to slow the game down. The ban list literally gets dropped with 7 minutes left on the clock, so everyone around us is going crazy, and it's really fucking stressful as we're having this little top deck war, but we eventually get the win after being hand trapped like a million times. Round 8 is our second Kashtira match of the day. We win the dice roll and have another sick interaction with Cartesia, Alibur, and Book of Moon to dodge imperms. We win that match 2-1. Taking us to the final match of the day. Round 9, it's another Cash matchup, and we win the dice roll. Undefeated against Cash all day, and it's gonna stay that way as we take this match 2-1. Again, we make our opponent start in game 3, and Sage clears a crucial interruption, allowing us to then play and take the dub. Woo! So we end day 1 with a 7-2 record and 40th place overall in Swiss. One more round, and if we win, it's top 32 time, baby. Cut to the next morning, and it's literally the worst case scenario I could ask for. Sat at table 20 for the first round of the day. It's super early, so I already know I'm gonna play like shit. It's the most important round of the entire tournament for me, so it's a bit stressful, and of course, we end up getting the feature match on top of that. Fuck my life. So here we go, round 10, all or nothing, and also my first ever feature match as well, which is like added stress because there's a judge sitting right there. Everything has to be professional. You don't really feel like you have time to think because you might get a slow play warning. It's just anxiety overload. But we do win the die roll, and we are going first. However, we open a hand of Ash, Nibiru, Book of Moon, Despian Tragedy, and Bestial Lubellion. Unplayable. Set 1 pass. Over to our opponent, they start off with a Happy Memory, discarding Droll to special summon a Purrlily from the deck. So we do Ash the Purrlily because we want to prevent our opponent getting to the My Friend Purrly. If you are summoning Purrlily, you're most likely going to search the My Friend because your other options like the field spell, and that's not great unless you're trying to dodge an Imperm. My Friend is like the card you want to stop hitting the field because it generates so much advantage by adding things back from grave when you out an Xyz monster. But it turns out our opponent had My Friend in hand already anyway, so they activate the My Friend, pay 500 and reveal 3 Pretty Memory, so obviously just adding a Pretty Memory to hand. From there they then normal summon Purrly and activate the effect to reveal the top 3. They reveal Sleepy, Purrlily and Delicious, so of course they are going to add the Delicious Memory to hand here. Then they go on to activate the Purrly effect, revealing from hand a Pretty Memory to overlay into a Beauty, which is essentially like an Imperm on legs. It also has a couple of other effects thanks to the memories attached to it, and one of those is Pretty Memory being able to send another card you control to target a card your opponent controls and attach that to the Xyz monster. So they set a Book of Moon, activate the effect, target in our back row, and we chain our own Book of Moon, target in Purrlily. This could actually be a big misplay because I'm trying to prevent a Noir from hitting the field because they have access to Delicious, and if they can get to Noir, we have literally no outs in our main deck to it and we would just lose. However, we do have Nibiru in hand, so preventing our opponent from being able to extend further and therefore not play into Nibiru is essentially killing our own hand at the same time, especially when we can't currently play through the negate on Beauty. So potential misplay there. They go to the battle phase and punch and then set 1 and pass. We top deck Bufo, which is playable but it's not great. So we set a monster, scale the Bufo and activate the effect to fuse to get to a Guardian Chimera, which is going to trigger the Tragedy as well. It's worth noting that if we didn't have to commit anything to the board and were able to make like a Masquerade with our materials in hand, we would have been in a much better position. But yeah, Masquerade just isn't really worth playing, to be honest. So fusing Nibiru with our Tragedy and Lubellion, we make Chimera. Chain 1 Chimera, chain 2 Tragedy. Of course, Beauty is going to negate the Chimera. Tragedy, we get to search for Alibur, and we then proceed to embarrass ourselves even more by, after setting a monster, we proceed to normal summon for the second time this turn. Normal summon Alibur, which our opponent imperms, and then the judge is like, yeah, you've already normal summoned this turn, so I'm like, okay, PE minor, sick, let's go. It's just a mix of stress and brainworms, okay? But yeah, this game is unwinnable from this point, so going into game 2, we once again go first. Thankfully, we see a much better hand this time and are actually able to play, so starting off, we normal summon Cartesia, and then follow that up with a branded opening, discarding Adlib to special summon Alibur, and Alibur does resolve, so we add Branded Fusion to hand. I think we can all guess what's about to happen next. We activate Branded Fusion, and of course, Ash Blossom comes down. Honestly, this actually isn't the end of the world because we can make Grand Guignol, dump Titaniclad to summon Quem, and then our opponent can't really play around the Quem without summoning from extra deck. So we activate the Cartesia effect after setting 1, our opponent allows that to go through, and we summon Grand Guignol. Activating the Grand Guignol effect, our opponent chains Imperm. Unfortunately, we don't have a book this time, so that is going to resolve. Grand Guignol stays on the field, and we're not going to be able to add back Cartesia in the end phase either, so honestly, kind of a rough situation. I mean, Ash Imperm will typically do that, but this is arguably still fine because we still have a live Grand Guignol summon, which can be Quem anyway. We still have our back row. It all depends on what our opponent chooses to do. So passing it over to them, they start off with a Pretty Memory. We both gain 1,000. They discard a card and summon from the deck. They do discard a Vanity's Fiend, which is interesting, sided in going second, to summon Purrlily, activating the Purrlily effect. We don't have an Imperm or an Ash this time, and they're able to add the My Friend to hand. From there, they activate My Friend Purrly, not the effect, just the card, and then proceed to activate Purrlily, target in Pretty Memory and Grave, to which we chain There Can Be Only One. Honestly, I'm pretty confident this should just be GG unless they like normal summon another hand trap and then go for like Nightmare Phoenix or something. At that point, they would have like no cards in hand, so also a good situation. They proceed to activate the effect of My Friend, paying 500, revealing 2 Lily and a spell, so of course they're going to get one of those randomly to hand. We don't know which one. Still not too worried at this point, but then they proceed to normal summon DD Crow. That's going to allow them to overlay into the Sylvan Plant rank 1, go to the battle phase and attack into Grand Guignol. So in theory I should have summoned it in attack position, but I didn't think they would get to this point, to be honest. But that's going to allow them to summon a Downerd and then summon a Zeus, all under There Could Be Only One. So I was very impressed with this play, honestly. They choose not to activate Zeus at this point, and just past turn we have one card in hand, is Fusion Deployment, and then we top deck a Keeper of Dragon Magic. This is a situation it requires a good amount of thought to figure out what the correct line is, and under the stress and anxiety of being on feature match and things like that, I don't feel like I have enough time to think without getting a slow play warning. I do fixate on the incorrect play by like a mile, unfortunately, and throw the game here. So normal summoning Keeper, we activate the effect discarding Fusion Deployment. We have no cards in hand at this point. The effect resolves and we add Instant Fusion. I didn't add Branded Fusion because Keeper is a dragon, therefore I wouldn't be able to summon Albion or Lubellion, and therefore I wrote the card off. However, the correct play is adding Branded Fusion and activating it using Granganol from the field and Albaz from deck to summon Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade could then clear the Zeus by dumping Titaniclad. Zeus would of course wipe the field, and in the end phase we would summon Quem, who on our opponent's turn would then be able to summon back the Mirror Jade, which would be our way of winning. Instead, I add Instant Fusion, activate Instant Fusion to summon Ambulance to add Bufo, thinking I can get to Chimera because Chimera is a beast, but with no monsters in hand, that's not happening. So we basically die to a Zeus swipe, and the game does go on for like another minute or two, but yeah, it's basically over by not searching Branded Fusion and go for Mirror Jade at this point. So we lose the bubble match, we don't top, and at the end of the day, we finish 70th place out of over 1,000 people, which isn't bad because we do net ourselves a playmat and a pack of World Championship qualifier sleeves. So overall, even though we fell at the very last hurdle, it was a great tournament experience, and after coming close to topping at both YCS London and Nationals now, I'm confident it'll happen eventually. I'd love to say that we can continue this journey to Euros, but I'm not able to make it this year, unfortunately, so no more big tournaments for a while. I'll still be playing and updating my branded list with current formats, so you can expect a new list pretty soon, but other than that, we're done here. Keeper gang, baby. Peace out.